All right. Hey, so we're gonna take a look at uh, a video from the basic expert, John. Um, Good dude. Opinions may vary, but he actually means well. I think he does a lot for the hobby. Um, he created some amazing things. Makuhito is a very cool OSR game. If you haven't checked it out, um, but he is a rules is written dude, and he talks about it a lot. And it was a long journey for him to get to rules as written, and he still catches a lot of flack from people who don't seem to have this I get it factor, and so it irritates some people. I think that's some of the things that get said are the epitome of midwittery. People think midwits are stupid. They're not. Midwits are people who are smart, just slightly above average IQs, but they say the dumbest things because they want to point out the most obvious stupid things instead of engaging in a conversation. Uh, so let's take a look at this. I'm going to tag John in here so he'll know that this was done. I just think that he deserves, instead of just these long dissertations, he calls it Dostoevsky length comment posts, where it's just incoherent rambling and these people are too afraid to engage. So I want to do this, and we'll take a look at where John and I agree and disagree on rules as written. And I very rarely have talked about this, but I think rules as written is incredibly important if you're learning how to play a game or running a game. So let's take a look at it. John, I'm not trying to steal your content.
How's it going, guys? John, the basic expert here, and bonus video this week because this is just grinding my gears. I'm so tired of bad arguments within this hobby. So, as many of you know,
Bad arguments in this hobby happen a lot, even outside of rules as written. It's insane. It's opinions get held up as truths, ought versus nots. And it's really interesting to see how far we've fallen in the ability to discourse. Nerds have always argued about gaming. We've always argued about everything. Who can beat up who? Can Superman do this? All those things. Let's go. Superman versus Mighty Mouse. If you get the reference, good on you.
take the position that we should be encouraging new GMs to play rules as written, and we should be encouraging people in general to be playing rules as written as much as possible in the hobby for multiple reasons, so that we're all speaking the same language when we're talking about a game, and it creates a better community when we're all having the same experience under the rules, or as close to the same experience as possible. We can speak the same language. We can then identify these same problems, fix them, and we can actually have, I think, a more constructive conversation on game design and how games work when we understand games in a rules as written perspective.
Okay, so yeah, he's on a really good point here of that. If you pick up a game and you read it, or you don't read it, or you assume you understand what the game is about, and you don't initially play the game rules as written to understand the rules and the mechanics and the reason and the design intent. There's a lot of things wrapped up in how rules are done and why they're done that way, and they may not be to your liking. We'll get to that point. But yes, if you are not able to do that and engage for a handful of sessions, you're doing yourself and your players a disservice, because you really don't know better than the designers who designed it, because you don't understand the intent, because you're not engaging the full scope and core of the rules. And I think that is important. And then you want to start making changes. And I've seen people who have told me, well, I haven't played your setting or your system yet, but here's what I think you should do different. Okay, awesome. Noted, but that's a point to disregard, because you've not engaged at the table, and you've not engaged the flow, and you can't do a one shot with rules. You can kind of get a feel for things, but you need to kind of see how things play out. And if it's a game where there's advancement of characters, and you really need to play a little bit longer. I'm not saying you got to play for a year. Don't worry, your average 6 sessions is going to be just fine, where most campaigns collapse anyway. So that'll give you a good indicator. But yeah, he's onto that. And there is a commonality of language. You need to be able to discuss these things as, okay, well, here's our group, here's our experience with these rules and how we found this rule to be, and here's our problematic area. Because it does happen, and when you start changing rules, the question then becomes, well, we're changing the rule because I don't like. Okay, well, then are you still playing the same game?
Now, I I want to clarify my position. I personally don't care if you are a little Rule Zero goblin who just homebrews your game to all hell, and it's not even recognizable as D&D or whatever game it was anymore. And
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about. Is like the more you change something, the less it is what you started out with. And I know people are like, well, there's house rules and Gary Gygax. I don't give a crap about any of those either. I'm just like, yeah, play the game how you want, but at least have an honest discourse with yourself and with your table and with others around you. That if I'm adding a bunch of house rules to fifth edition because I don't like how it runs, well, then I'm no longer really playing fifth edition, because what's in the books is fifth edition. What's in my head and my heart and how I feel about it is not fifth edition. Um, and that's where I think people get hemmed up, because they think there's no difference, and there is a vast difference in how things work out.
it's like become your own thing. Whatever, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's fine. If you ask me my opinion on it,
yeah.
I might like it. I might say, "Wow, maybe you should republish that as a new game," or I
Hmm.
might say, "That's terrible. That's absolutely awful. I don't want to play that." But good for
Yeah, yeah,
you.
yeah.
And I noticed that a lot of Rule Zero people at the latter response get very butthurt about it
So just in case no one's tracking, Rule Zero is the GM can do whatever they want with the game system. It neatly never applies to players, just like fudging. Different petty topics. It's okay with the DM fudges, but you never let your players fudge. That's okay. I got your numbers. And then for the Rule Zeros, the GM can just make things up on the fly, and it's not just adjudicating the rules that aren't a fit. That's not what Rule Zero really means. Rule Zero is, hey, if you don't like this, just change it and disregard.
because they're looking for validation in what they do. It's all vainglory. They all just want a validation from strangers online about their games.
Yeah, yeah, it's true in a lot of cases.
Um, and I'm not going to give that to you for that, because that's just not in line with my design philosophy, my game philosophy. That's not what the philosophy that I have adopted at this point. I used to be in that camp, used to be of that mindset. I will admit that I was wrong. And I've changed gears, I've changed directions. I've been having a lot more fun in my games now. I'm enjoying them a lot more. And it's all due to a big shift in my perspective on games. And that would include playing games, especially new ones that I'm unfamiliar with. Rules is written and low to zero prep games, sandbox games,
Yeah.
and really go
Amongst my favorite, the low prep, the rules light games. And John and I would disagree on which systems I think are best, but Anthony and I covered that, where and it's not John, but there are people out there that disregard these rules light games, but they demand that the games that they love, the games that are popular like D&D or Call of Cthulhu, do the things that they're not meant to do. This is where it becomes frustrating.
forward trying
Hence the rule zeroing of all these games, because they're trying to cram everything in with a shoehorn.
to do a club style game with lots of players per the rules in Zero E, especially for my own white box game. And so I've been enjoying that. I've been having a lot of fun with that. It's been tremendous fun for me. And it's interesting to me. I get so annoyed with the Rule Zero people that say there's no wrong way to play, and then except for any way that's different from.
There are so many wrong ways to play a game. There are a ton of wrong ways, and I know people get big mad at that. I'm telling you, there are wrong ways to play the game. Again, and John usually covers this, the books are written with a design and an intent in mind. How you engage that changes dramatically the game as intended. And again, we come to that midwintery where it's, I bought the game, I can do whatever I want with it. Hey, sure enough, but you're not engaging. You could run Task Force Raven as your operators open up a Starbucks cafe in Jakarta, and you only hunt monsters on a side gig, or what? I wait for them to come to you to have some romancy. You're not engaging Task Force Raven by the intent of the design.
Their way. this is the problem. This is the relativistic, subjectivist problem with these people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're going to be in the comment section below. It's been a while since I've.
Oh, they were in the comment section, all right, and they don't understand that their relativism has destroyed myth. Yeah,
made an inflammatory video like this, but
the video is not that inflammatory, John.
Understand, again, I really don't care about your homebrew game. I don't like. I don't think. I don't want to kick down.
No one cares about your homebrew games. That's just like no one cares about your character or the video I did about your backstory. No one actually gives a shit.
Your door and arrest you. I don't want to. I don't want to send the D&D police after you for homebrewing your game and not playing rules as written. I really don't care. I at this channel am only talking about what I like, my perspective on games, and what I think is best. Everyone else out there in D&D YouTube land gets to make these should and ought claims, and this is
that is true. And fair to John, I've been watching John's content for a long time, and he's not really about like, here's how you be a better game master, here's how you maximize your builds, or he's not into that nonsense. He just kind of goes over his design philosophies and theories and goes forward. I'm the same way. I made a video of no one will make you a better game master. They won't. You can watch 1,000 actual plays. You can watch 1,000 videos from dungeon tubers who don't actually play the games. It's insane. Or they play. Yeah, no. Yeah.
What really grinds my gears and really annoys me, it's annoyed me for like the last 2 years, is that all of these people that say there's no wrong way to play will make these ought claims. Oh, well, you ought to prep this. You should be doing this. You should be using 5-room dungeons. You should be doing this. You ought to do this. You ought to do X, Y, and Z. You ought to use this hack to fix so-and-so game.
To be fair, a lot of this is opinion takes. There are people who would say these are the things that you need to be doing, which is, of course, ought is the fancier word for need. But yeah, you do see that. I will only tell you the things that I do. We had a comment where, I asked for a true truth and a lie about a character, and someone is running with that and they're enjoying it because it opens up it opens up character interactions a lot more for them. But I don't think you ought to do it. I just was what I do because it was worse for me.
They're able to make these claims all day. But the moment you make a particular ought claim, that is, you should try a game rules as written first, people spurg out and lose their mind.
You 100% should play a game rules as written. It is the dumbest thing I can think of to get a game or read it or half-ass read it and then think you know better than the designers of the game of what should be going down in that game. You simply don't know how the system interacts with itself.
Lose their mind. They cannot handle this, and I don't know why.
Ego. Everyone has an ego in this hobby. Nerds have always believed themselves to be smarter than everyone around them, and they are egocentric numbnuts to a high degree many times.
I do not know what the issue is with them. I don't know if it's a cognitive issue. I don't know if it's a mental health issue. I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is. But it's absolutely crazy to me that
also some of these people just don't like John and how his earlier videos came across. And so John could tell you the sky is blue and snow is white, and they're going to disagree and come out with, well, technically, the azure nature of the sky.
They, first of all, think that they can even make should and ought claims when they believe that there's no wrong way to play. If there's no wrong way to play, you cannot make should and ought claims about the game. It's all your opinion and preference. And if it's all your opinion and preference, who cares?
Yeah, 100%. I want to run a 5th edition game. I'll use the 2024 rules because they're actually not bad. But it'll be only using the 3 books and the DMG optional rules. They're built into the game. They're thereby intended by design. And so it's not a should or an ought. It's just how I want to run the game. And I wouldn't advise anyone else to do it because I need a different feeling from 5th edition that I can only get that feeling by using the DMG to, its maximum extent possible. But I would never tell you, hey, if you don't use a DMG like I would, you suck. Yeah, John's right here. It's just crazy.
Really, who cares? Now, I just said I'm expressing my view and I'm expressing my position. And I will say, I will make the strong claim that I think that I'm right. I think that if I didn't think I was right, I wouldn't.
It's because John is right on this topic. It'd be like me buying a board game and looking at the pieces and axis analysis and be like, well, I guess we just mix and match all these different colored airplanes and put them wherever the hell we want. The numbers can mean anything. No, stop.
Make a channel and talk about it, right? I wouldn't be so passionate about it. Same goes for the Rule Zero people. They may say there's no wrong way to play, but they do actually think that there is a right and wrong way to play. They really do. And it might be subjective to them, but they really think that their view, their perspective is the correct and way to play. If they didn't, they wouldn't be engaged in this performative contradiction of spurging out when they encounter anyone with a different perspective than them. Or
To be fair, some of them do seem like they're spurging out. Not everyone, but yes, he's not wrong.
when they encounter the rules as written perspective, because under their umbrella view of no wrong way to play, rules as written is still correct, logically speaking.
Yes, rules is written. Oh my God, yeah, he's right. It is. It is the correct way to play the game.
So all that out of the way, I want to tackle a few arguments that I've seen as of late over this week on X, because the debate has been resurged, mostly in part thanks to Sandy Peterson. And I want to sort of highlight some of his comments here because I think they're important. All right. So he says, this is in response to my buddy Crossface, who had said, rules as written has never been tried, and it's because it's very hard to play a game rules as written, especially old D&D games. They're very, I'll admit, old school D&D can be very obtuse and difficult to discern in places, and this makes playing it rules as written difficult. It's a hard thing to do, especially like 0E or 1E. It's very difficult for people to understand certain aspects. Look at the
I have been writing macros for Foundry to play Zero Edition D&D using Chainmail as combat resolution because that's the way it was supposed to be played. Yes, there's an alternate D20 system. That's for the week. And yeah, there's some things where I have to keep going back and cross-referencing a few things because yes, it was written at a higher educational level, and also it is a little obtuse.
grappling system in 1E, weapon speed and segments,
Yeah.
psionics in 1E, look in 0E, and how to implement chainmail. This has been obviously a big point of contention that I've talked about on my channel as well. So, it's difficult to get a grasp of these things. It's hard. So Crossface had said, it's never been tried, or at least it's not been tried on as wide a scale as it should have been. Plain D&D rules as written. Sandy Peterson says, not so. Raw is attempted in their very first game by every play group because they have no.
It's not every play group does Raw. Probably a good majority of them may do it, but yeah, it's not done all the time. You can't have a statement like that.
No other reference. Then, when it fails disastrously, they are forced to add stuff. And so Sandy Peterson is a game designer. He designs tabletop role-playing games. And I very much disagree with this perspective that he has placed here.
If you don't know who Sandy Peterson is, he's the king godfather of Call of Cthulhu, Ghostbusters. He actually played D&D with Gygax.
And I want to shine a light with some of my comments here, where I say game designers, in my humble opinion, shouldn't be telling you the game they design is disastrous. So he's making a universal claim in his comment there that trying any game rules as written is going to end a disaster. And I would assume that includes his own games that he's made. So game designers, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a weird statement when you say, yes, everyone's going to try rules as written, and then it invariably fails. Like, well, he's not wrong. That tells me that you think Call of Cthulhu is a disaster, rules as written, which it's an odd way to make a statement.
Shouldn't be telling you that the game they designed is disastrous. The Bethesda style of design needs to end. It's not your job to pay a designer for the privilege of redesigning the designer's game and fixing their errors and fixing their problems. You wouldn't buy a car that you had to fix right away when it was factory new. I don't understand why these other game designers expect you to do that for their work and the work of others, I'll even add. I'm going to say this right now. For me, if you buy one of my games and you have to vigorously homebrew it to make it work, because otherwise it's so broken it doesn't work, rules as written, I failed. And I will admit that like some games that I've made have been rough. Cowpunchers is probably rough. Atomic Punk is rough.
Oh yeah, I feel the same way. I know there are games that are like, oh, I could do better than that, which makes me want to do a second edition of like OSNR. OSNR is a really cool dark fantasy game, and then probably, and I know it has rough edges. It was also the first game I ever did. But is it playable as written? Oh, absolutely. It's playable rules as written. There are a couple of campaign reports that I've been given by folks, and I've run it at conventions.
And I really feel like with White Box, you know, I've sort of really figured a lot of things out. I'm trying hard with every. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying hard with every release that
Yeah, every game you should evolve.
I do to make each of those games less of a failure.
Most of my mistakes are grammar. It just is what it is.
To do the best that I can with each one, learning from past things that I've designed to become better and better and better at what I do. Because I want you to, when you buy one of my games, for it to be as complete as possible. There's probably going to be mistakes. There's going to be errors. There's going to potentially be things that are broken that I didn't test as hard as I could. I didn't push to the limit as hard as I could.
Yeah, fair.
And I didn't.
Yeah. I want to redo Task Force Raven. There's not an entirely different way, but there's a way I would handle the combat operations specialties now that makes me happier when I think about having, if I should have done it that way. Game's fully playable. People enjoy it, but there's probably a better way I could have done it.
There could be a mistake. There could be a mechanic that's broken. And I will admit that is a failure on my part as a designer because I didn't give you the full and complete game that I needed to give you. I gave you a buggy Bethesda game. You know,
but it's also hard for guys like John and I because we don't have entire teams dedicated to these games and the play testing and in the hundreds. You know, he and I are kind of people who are lucky that if you know we give out Open Six, the game I designed, it's sold, you know, hundreds of copies with zero feedback except from the people I've run it for, and you never can tell like you know what you're hearing at the table is 100% what people really think, just because of human nature. So yeah, it kind of sucks for folks like us.
I don't want to give you a buggy Bethesda game. As fun as most old Bethesda games are, I don't want to give you a buggy Bethesda game. So I would consider it a failure on my part if I was, and it would be cope on my part for me to say, well, you know, it's just the way it is. Like rules as written is never going to work. So buy my game, buy my game, and then fix it. You know, because I don't want to hold myself to a higher standard.
I feel like crap whenever someone points out there's a grammatical error or a punctuation or something mechanical that I got wrong because I was working, you know, on how many versions. Version control becomes a nightmare.
I'm going to hold myself to a higher standard. And I can't speak for Sandy. I can't speak for anyone else. I'm only speaking for myself. This is just my view for myself and how I view what I do. And while I'm always trying to level up and become better at what I do here, as far as my own game design is concerned. So I don't like this view. I think this is harmful to the hobby as a whole. It's very much, in my opinion, similar to what goes on in video games. It's less damaging, I think, than what we see in video games. But this idea of like,
yeah, because you're talking, you know, tens of millions of game sales, which is a lot of money going out with it. Our hobby is, it is what it is.
We're gonna charge you full price for this buggy, incomplete game, and then you can buy some DLC or the modding community can, you know, they can fix.
And that's a maybe. Like Bloodlines 2. There's no tools to mod it at this point, and maybe, but no. As I understand, there's no way to mod it. There's no tools for that, so you're going to get in there and dig deep. And the game, yeah, I don't know.
Fix it for free, you know. I don't think that's lazy, and I don't think that's good, and I don't like seeing that in TTRPGs. I just don't. And so I just ardently disagree with that mindset. I don't think that's a feature. I think that's a bug, and I think that's a problem.
It's just lazy. You become lackadaisical. You're like, yeah, if there's mistakes, people will figure it out, and then, you know, screw them. They'll either fix it themselves or they won't play the game or whatever, which is a disservice to your customer.
So I want to look at a few more posts here from various people. All right, this is again my buddy Crossface. He was discussing with someone who this is a common argument I see from Rule Zero people, and it's this idea that rules as written is easy. That's Baby's first RPG. Rules as written is easy. That's what it's like what Sandy said.
Why the voice, John?
It's what everyone does first. Rules as written is so easy. The real high level skill thing is homebrewing and Rule Zero and designing your own thing. That is the high level game.
Nah.
I don't agree with that. And my buddy
No.
Crossface doesn't agree with that. He says, yes, it is incredibly difficult to just make it up as you go from week to week. Kindergartners around the world shoulder the weight that no game designer could ever imagine carrying. And I quote retweeted him because I just thought it was so good. And I said, I can't imagine the weight on my daughter's shoulders as she plays with her dolls. And I wanted to comment on this further here by saying, if raw is so easy and homebrewing is so advanced, we wouldn't see so much half-baked homebrew as the first thing most people do. If something is easy, more people do it. Humans naturally take the path of least resistance, the path that has the least pain. And it's clearly very hard and painful for many to read a rule book, and it has been this way for 50 years. And
not so long. There back in the day, we actually dug into these books, and we were like scholars in the 70s and the 80s, and then we became lazy, and the optimizers, otherwise known as rule lawyers, they became the table custodian for all of us.
I want to give this piece of commentary here because I think that a lot of the people in the OSR that, for example, that I see that elevate Rule Zero to this high pedestal, higher than I think it needs to be. I think Rule Zero is useful.
Rule Zero is a bottom rung.
I'm not anti-Rule Zero. I just think it's there for edge cases and for someone who's mastered the rules, who can make rulings.
Yes, 100%.
With the rules in mind. I've talked before about rulings over rules is just a stupid phrase because you can't make rulings without rules. So you need to have a masterful understanding of a system in order to make rulings in the spirit of that system that might not be in there. They might be edge cases for things that you don't know that are not outlined for you. But if you master a system and you understand how that system works, you're going to be more likely to make a ruling at the table because you master the system that will be in the spirit and compatible with what's already in the rule books and what you're already using. You're not going to break something. It's Chesterton's fence, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Don't move the fence. Don't take down the fence unless you know why the fence is there in the first place. It's very simple. So I'm not anti-Rule Zero. I just
no fences.
Think that it's I think that it takes some rules mastery.
100%.
But he
also takes setting mastery, but that may be a different discussion altogether.
But so let me get to my second point here. People complain about how WotC has handled the D&D property. You don't seem to grasp that exalting Rule Zero above anything else paved the way. And if what WotC has done is bad and Rule Zero is so great, what WotC has done shouldn't be a big deal. Just Rule Zero it and change it, you dummy. My point here is that
100% yes.
That WotC just Rule Zeroed the IP, guys. I don't know what you Rule Zero people that don't like the activism in it, that don't like the political statements in it, that don't like certain mechanics like death saves. Everyone is magical. It's too easy for players to not die. It's not deadly enough. These are all rule problems. I don't understand why you complain about 5e if Rule Zero is so powerful. Why do we have any sort of addition wars at all? What makes you, as an OSR Rule Zero guy, better than a 5e person, the 5e head, right? Is it that you ignore a different set of rules? And
no, what this really comes down to, all the things he was hitting on is like some of it was mechanical, but ultimately the people who cry about WotC, they don't like WotC. They don't like WotC's personal politics of their designers and developers when they get online and use social media and all that jazz. But that does trickle down into they don't actually know what's in the game. There's a lot of things that I've heard about 5th edition 2024. I was like, oh, this, that. I have the books. And I was like, none of those things are true. Not a single one of those things are true. And so yes, but to his point, really, there's just different editions of D&D. Hey man, you know, you're not playing the same game. Zero E is nothing similar to 5th edition, except for roll that D20 against an armor class.
Change a different set of rules than they do. That's not really much.
Even the character classes have changed, except for the cleric. That's the only one that has maintained itself since the first book. It was fighting men, and it was magic user, and it was cleric, and then dwarf elf and hobbit.
You're both, in my opinion, making the same mistake. And if what WotC has done is so bad, and Rule Zero is again so powerful, you don't have to have Mexican orcs. Just Rule Zero it, man. Just change it. You can just change it. Who cares what's in the book? Who cares what art is in the book? Nothing in the books don't matter. Rule Zero is so powerful.
I mean, to be fair, the art in the book doesn't really matter. It just irritates people if it's ugly art. Like there's 2nd edition AD&D. My God, I hated the art, especially the Ravenloft stuff. Man, that weird black and white. Oh, I love that art style, and it was present in so many of their products. It is terrible 3rd edition art, chef's kiss. 4th edition art, holy God. And some of the 5th edition art is really, really good. There's some stupid art in some of the books, but it's just like the style. Art can be powerful, and people will allow the emotion of the art of how it affects you at the internal level, and they let it override their sensibilities of the game itself.
It doesn't matter. But you don't see any of these people doing that. I see the activists that support WotC and what they do saying this to you.
Yeah. I ran Daggerheart, and you're never. It just, I guess, depends on the setting, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
And you get upset at that, but I don't see you making this claim, which seems to contradict your view that Rule Zero is so powerful, that Rule Zero is so awesome. I think that you're having this problem because Rule Zero, like I said, is meant for edge cases. It's meant for things after you've mastered the rules that don't fall within the purview of.
Yeah, and the purview of the rules is written. I'm curious too if there is a people cannot separate Rule Zero from homebrew. The idea of homebrew, they are two different things. They are two vastly different things, and I'm wondering, kind of rereading this, if that might be the issue with people who are taking umbrage to this Rule Zero discussion, is that they, in their minds, they think that having, I don't know, like goddamn bat people as an ancestry is Rule Zero. It's not. That's homebrew. Rule Zero is for edge cases when the rules don't explicitly cover or implicitly cover a situation that you're in, and you need to make a ruling on the fly as a GM and keep things going.
The rules as written. You have to make a ruling within the spirit of the game.
Yeah.
So to a degree, yes, Rule Zero and homebrew is very high level, but the way that many do it is not at a high level. They're doing it at a very below amateurish level in a lot of respects. So
yes.
the thing is,
midwintery.
It's like we see it all over YouTube. Homebrew this, change this, you ought to do this. Again, they're allowed to make all these ought claims, and you should use this hack to fix whatever. No one wants to open up the dang books and see what the books actually have to say. Why again complain about 5e? I see this all the time. Why again complain about 5e?
Because it's the company, not the rules.
You can just Rule Zero it and fix it.
100%. That's what people's biggest issue is.
It. Just fix it. Who cares? Why buy any book at all? You can just make anything up on the fly that's better than anything any designer can make. Why don't you just gather together with your friends and just make up the game as you go? Why don't more people just do that? Why do you even spend money on books? I don't understand.
That is a fair question.
Man, just make it up. You're so awesome, and Rule Zero is so great. Just make it up. I don't see people doing that as often. There's the Free Kriegspiel people that do that, but that's a little different. But it's in the same spirit. But I don't see the general Rule Zero person within the TTRPG sphere, within the role playing game, pen and paper role playing game sphere. I don't see them doing that, and I don't see them playing rules as written either. If they were, there wouldn't be such vitriolic response to saying you like playing rules as written, or to you advocating that, hey, maybe other people should play rules as written. You know,
I don't know. I think a lot of the AP, I'm trying to think of the APs I watch, I think they're almost always rules as written. The biggest issue is they don't actually, the rules is written, but they don't know the rules, not fully, and so they make little mistakes. But everyone forgets things. Hell, I forget stuff. Well, Savage Worlds, I've been playing that game for 20 years, so it still happens. Sometimes you just blank out on something, and you're like, "Oh my god, I don't really remember that," because it's something that doesn't come up a lot. So yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know if people are playing rules as written or not. Most of the APs I watch, I would say they are rules as written.
no. If there's no wrong way to play, that my perspective that I've just outlined, you should play rules as written, is just as valid as yours. That Rule Zero is ultimate and supreme, and there's no wrong way to play. It's just my way, in your view. If you want to be logically consistent, is to go, oh, awesome, man, cool. That's one of many valid ways to do it. And even if I make a very strong and declarative statement that I think that my way is the right and correct way, my way is superior, which I do think that. If I didn't think that, I wouldn't be advocating for the way that I play. I wouldn't be telling people to do this.
Rules as written can be pretty powerful. I mean, I'm telling you, I really want to run Zero Edition D&D. Rules as written using chainmail to deal with the combat. It dramatically changes the flow of that game.
And you wouldn't either as a Rule Zero person. You wouldn't, if you didn't think your way was superior and the best, you wouldn't push back on that, or you wouldn't be making ought and should claims on your YouTube channels, on your X posts, in your forum posts, in your Discord servers. You wouldn't, in the comment section of YouTube, you wouldn't be making should and ought claims either if you didn't think your way was superior and right. That's just the way it is. That's the way arguments work. All in all, I'm just
That's giving me nausea.
annoyed by a lot of these things. I wanted to make this video because I just think these arguments are bad. They're not good.
A lot of them are in bad faith.
They're not even in good faith. I think they fundamentally lack. Because here's the thing: I think a lot of people also don't grasp, from me in particular, is I used to be anti rules as written. I used to be 100% just make it up, creative freedom. Rules as written is so restrictive. And I used to say all these arguments. I used to say these things. I used to have this view. I understand very clearly how that view works.
Yeah, same. I'm in John's boat. I'm definitely the rules is written first, tweak later with homebrew if necessary. But I need to understand how a game works first, and then low prep. I used to be super low prep. I'm still probably too low prep. I just begin to realize lately that it's like, nah, you need to prep.
I understand where it comes from and the reasons for each presupposition within that view. I don't feel like the other side understands this position. I don't even feel like they understand their own position, because again, you can't make should and ought claims from the perspective that there's no wrong way to play and Rule Zero is supreme. You can't. You just can't tell people that you should do this and you ought to do this. If you disagree with what I say right now, you can't even make a disagreement in the comment section without contradicting yourself.
Yeah, that's mostly right. I designed an entire game to get around all of this. Open six, look for and drive through RPG.
You just can't. It's just not logically possible, because if you believe there's no wrong way to play and you think that the advice that I've been giving here,
so many wrong ways to play,
that you should play rules as written, and this is the correct and best way to play, if you actually are believing that there's no wrong way to play, you can't push back against my perspective logically. You just have to either keep quiet or go, oh, cool, okay. That's just the way logic works. So I'm tired of these sorts of things. I'm gonna keep pushing rules as written.
He's 100% pushing rules as written. His posts on YouTube are on fire.
I'm gonna keep pushing this way to play, because I think I want to look at one last thing, one last tweet here. All right, so right here, I was quoting my friend Alchemic Raker. He says, "I said
I was
White
just looking
Box
at
wouldn't have
this.
happened if I and others hadn't taken this recommended equipment section seriously." So the Kickstarter I just did, which overlays chainmail over the D20 alternative combat system and gives you a more complete D20 based 1974 Zero E experience. This wouldn't exist if if my friends and I hadn't looked at this
Hmm.
here and taken all of this seriously. But see, what he points out is I'm a cut corners on all these rules, but it's still raw and it won't affect the quality of games I run. And I'm not going to have 50 players from from
Oh man, the original groups for the Blackmores. If you watch the stupid documentary, not stupid, it's a great documentary. If you watch the documentary, there's a lot of players. But if you understand how zero edition D&D works, you can having 50 players would be simple, especially if you're going to have a 1 to 20 on referees and inner working of a campaign. That would be so baller, actually.
4 to players, like four
I need to organize that at a con next year.
to 50 players is what it says there. Handled in any campaign, but the referee to player ratio should be about 1 to 20 thereabouts. They don't want to read that. 4 to 20 pairs of 6-sided dice. Why do you need so many? Oh, well, because you need chainmail. Well, we're going to cross that.
Yeah, you need it. Yeah, because using chainmail as a combat resolution, that is the only thing you're using to resolve things. That's the attack dice, it's the damage dice, it's morale dice, it's reaction dice, it's everything.
Out too. We don't need that. One 3-ring notebook for the referee only for them. Each player is supposed to
Yes.
have their own
I have all my wife's notebooks she's purchased every time she sat down at the table and actually played with us. She always gets her own notebook.
notes. And for the record, I will say my players, without telling them, they keep notebooks and
Yeah.
they keep good notes on my campaigns.
I mean, mostly people keep iPads or iPhones or whatever else for note keeping, but whatever.
Sometimes I forget something or I don't take a good note and I have to ask them and they actually have the note for me. White Box started here. It started with like, what happens when you do this? What happens when you take what Gary and Dave say here seriously and you just do what they tell you to do? Do you have fun? And the answer that we came to was yes, you do.
Oh man, I ran some sample combats recently with the rules from Zero Edition Raw, and yeah, it is pretty cool. And man, you can see where the danger ramps up pretty quickly.
We played many games of White Box at this point. I've played many
It's not because the characters are frail. It's just that's a total different thing. I already made a video on that.
games of White Box, both solo and with other people. Everyone has had a good time with it. Everyone has had a good time. It gets a little crunchy and it gets a little hard to wrap our head around it because we got to
Yeah.
get rid of some of our BX presuppositions.
Yeah, like rolling initiative. You got to get rid of the D20. Yeah, it's really, really weird to sit and look at how that works. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm using a dagger, where do I go in the speed stack? Because that's important. And then versus the different types of armors, what do I need? And versus fantasy beasts, I have to roll X no matter what.
That we kind of overlay over OD&D to kind of fill in the gaps. We have to get rid of that, but ultimately we have a lot of fun. I know that for Alchemic Raker, a lot of people have fun with the old lords and implementing those resolution methods from chainmail as well. So this White Box wouldn't have happened if we hadn't have taken this section of the very start of Zero E in Volume 1 in Book 1 seriously. If we hadn't taken it seriously. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say today. I'm a little annoyed by a lot of this Rule Zero nonsense. Again, let me reiterate, because people are dense and they hear you say something and then they conjure in their head their own straw man vision of
Yeah, you're a monster, John.
what it is that you're saying. I believe that the way I'm playing and the way I like to play is the correct and best way to play. I think it's the best
Everyone always thinks that,
way to play.
That's probably part of the thing is you're having two people who are irritated because their way is the best way.
To tell new players to play. I think the best way for
New players absolutely need to play rules as written. If you do not play rules as written, and you have a new player, if you're not teaching new players exactly how the game works, instead of overwhelming them with all your nonsensical homebrew, um, it's weird. And then you're gonna have new players who have read the books, hopefully, maybe, and if they have, we make a rule 0, which is just a weird call. They're going to challenge you on it, and so you need to be ready to be able to explain that and why it works.
For them to play is to play rules as written, as close to that as possible. Study the rule book before they even run a game. Actually read it. Don't just skim it.
Yeah, you got to go word for word, man, in those things, and it's going to take time. They're hundreds of pages long.
Don't just paraphrase it. Don't just flip through it. Read it. Everything.
AI is your friend in a lot of these instances.
Every paragraph, every word of the system, of the core rules of the system you are going to be playing. Run it like that for a while so that you can figure out what it is. And then, and only then, rule 0 it.
Yes. Well, see, this is a game where I think it's a confusion between rule 0 and homebrew. Rule 0 can come up anytime. First session, rules is written. You can look back at the rules, or you can just make the ruling on the fly, which is what rule 0 intent is, I don't know. You may not know what the rule's saying, so you don't want to waste time at the table looking things up and arguing. In the beginning, when you're playing games, you probably should do that. Your pace should be low and slow, and then ramp up from there, so you are doing it. But yeah, it's
homebrew it. You will be rule 0ing it probably because the players, by the nature of what way RPGs work, will veer off course. They will do and ask to do things that might not be covered in the book. But because you read the rules, because you mastered the system, because you actually read it cover to cover, you will be able to, on the fly, make a judgment call that is in the spirit of the rules. And it won't break the game.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to be rolling 2d10 when you should be rolling a d20, and you're not. So that means that you're not going to have the highest percentage chance of rolling 11, which for some D&D rolls is going to be a problem of success. You're gonna struggle to not die in certain respects, and that might not be fair. For example,
yeah, we're moving the d20 roll and making it a 3d6 roll. That's a thing that tries to happen in 5th edition every once in a while, and even other versions of D&D.
I'm just using that as an example. So that I'm going to say that that's what I think. However, there's some nuance here. If you do homebrew, first thing, if you don't read your rules, if you just make it up as you go along and you play Calvin Ball, essentially, I really don't care. It doesn't bother me. I'm not going to send the D&D Gestapo after you, the secret police, to arrest you and put you in a concentration camp. I don't even have the power to do that. And even if I did, I wouldn't do it. I don't care. But what I will say is that side,
I know people are like, well, then why do you talk about it?
They get to make should and ought claims. They get to do that. For me, I should be able to get to say that. My friends should be able to make should and ought claims. We should be able to compare our ideas. We should let the quality of our games and how we run them bear out. And that should be the proof. There should be the proof in the pudding there as well. And so I'm just tired of these straw man arguments of my position. I understand the rule 0 position, the homebrew position, the heavy homebrew position, the rules don't matter position. I understand that position extremely well. I understand all your arguments. I understand your perspective on that entirely. I get it. I used to have that view. Everyone
Yeah, a lot of people
had that view. That view is common knowledge. That is the mainstream wisdom within the hobby. Of course, I understand that perspective.
Yeah.
Of course I do. That's where I came from. Just like 2 or 3 years ago, I was advocating for that very thing until I had my mind changed, because I am open to having my mind changed. And so,
yeah, like when you start looking at shit and it's like AD&D rules is written, for me, is a nightmare. And I've never actually played a rules is written. And I can admit that, even when it was a new one, I was new to the hobby and learning the game. Still what he's talking about, same mistakes.
All I ask is that you try and understand that perspective.
And we'll talk about why that's important when he's done.
Perspective of the rules is written perspective. Don't make spurging out your first response.
Spurg out, it's awesome.
Don't make...
He loves it. I love it.
Getting angry, your first response. Maybe maybe try not to engage in performative contradictions. If you really believe what you believe about Rule Zero, if you really believe what you say when you say there's no wrong way to play, if you really believe that, actually put that into practice in how you engage with the hobby and others within it, especially from different perspectives. Your view that there's no wrong way to play should be extremely open-minded.
It's not. Everyone's emotionally tied to their opinion because there's only one true way.
And extremely cordial, extremely easy to talk to. Yet they're some of the most difficult, close-minded people I've ever met. I'm going to be honest with you. I know that might offend some people, but just in my own interactions with them,
How dare you,
it's
John?
one of the most close-minded positions within the hobby that I've seen in my whole time in it. Really, honestly. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. It's probably going to make a lot of people mad. I really don't care.
It did. It definitely made a lot of people mad.
That's not what I do here at this channel. If I wanted to be successful, I would cave in and give in to the conventional wisdom that we see all prevalent all throughout the hobby, all throughout the YouTube sphere of this hobby, on X, on Facebook, on all social media. I would just spoon feed that same stuff, but I'm taking a different position because I, first of all, believe it's true and I believe it's correct. And secondly, I think it's necessary to sort of push back against the conventional wisdom that I think has not everything correct about it. I don't think that it has. I don't think that it's bared. It's created good fruit in the hobby necessarily. It's made some, but it's made a lot of bad fruit too. And so, because I see that, and because I believe what I believe, I'm going to keep pressing forward and talking about these sorts of things, and pushing for this view, pushing for this Chesterton's fence idea of rules as written. Don't move the fence. Don't take down the fence unless you know why the fence is there in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know what you're doing.
I think that that's a pretty reasonable perspective to have. I don't think that that should be extremely
It's not. John's a monster, and we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna stop sharing this. Move back into things. So, I think the big thing is what I realized was the rules written again. I think there's a misunderstanding between the homebrew and rules written are two vastly different things. And I will say that the people who rule zero, sorry, I meant rule zero and homebrew. Rule zero, making those little things on the fly, like, oh, I don't know what the rule is, so I'm going to make that. Is okay. Is homebrew is, and the biggest problem is when you start to change a game, and the biggest thing you see is, well, I'm homebrewing this, I don't like this, I don't like that. Play a different goddamn game. You are no longer playing the same game, and what it really comes down to is you want to play the brand. I've talked about this before. I made a video about it. You want to play the brand. That's more important than play Dungeons and Dragons because that's the cool kid RPG. Instead of just finding a fucking game that matches with your style and what you need, you want to change everything about an existing system because you are lazy or ignorant in the most beneficial term of other systems. You're not willing to explore because my money's okay. Cool. We all know, that's not an obstacle for PDFs. I don't really care. Watch APs. There's a lot of things. Well, APs are just terrible advices too sometimes because people are boring when they run games. Even the most exciting game like Savage Worlds can be just completely brought to the ground by a boring ass game master, a table full of players that have no imagination, which is another whole terrible affliction of the hobby. But yes, that's what the real problem is people continually demand to change the rules and to change what they're doing, and to change settings because they don't like it. It doesn't mesh with their style of play. Stop playing the goddamn game. Stop being loyal to a brand. Jesus wept. Go find other games to play. It's okay. And I know, well, I won't find anyone to play if I don't play 5th edition. Hey man, tough shit. Convince your group to do something else.